Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's hiding up in his bedroom. My whole family's in town for my son's graduation, and I don't want to make them all be quiet. But I did want to release something. I'm not doing as many videos as I normally do this week for said reasons. But a new Smile song came out, and anytime Thom Yorke and Johnny Greenwood, and I guess now Tom Skinner get together, I want to talk about it. I think it's important to follow their growth and their development. In the same way, it's important to follow the growth and development of each individual member of Radiohead. They're just that good. And when I'm thinking about this song, there's kind of a funny thing where I didn't understand the lyrics at all the first couple times I listened to it. So my initial take was just this sort of hazy understanding of some kind of car thing happening. And I sort of got the themes. I sort of understood what they were. And it turns out that my initial take, even without really understanding the lyrics, was that this was a existential question. This is essentially to be or not to be, which is to say, it is a question of, okay, so you can't say the word. You can't say this SUICIDE word on YouTube, because it messes you up and they hide you away. And I don't want to be hidden. I think this is a good video. I'm not talking about doing that thing. So I guess I will call it extreme self-harm. So this is a soundtrack to extreme self-harm that ends in the cessation of life. And the question of whether or not that is something that someone should do. And when I say sort of a to be or not to be thing, that was the sense that I got from this song before I even realized that the song itself quotes Hamlet, where that comes from. So I'm sort of imagining this song as being Thom Yorke's version of the to be or not to be soliloquy, which I will discuss in a second, but just sort of set to music and put in a James Bond movie. Because the whole thing comes through as this moment where he's driving in a 1960s roadster with a convertible, and he's on the Italian countryside, and he's going down those winding roads. You know those roads. You've seen them in every spy movie ever, especially James Bond. We had this kind of image of whether or not he is going to drive off the cliff. And we don't know. That's the central question of this song. He simultaneously does and does not drive off into the cliff, ending his own life. That's an essential element of this whole song, that we never actually have the answer. Does he do it to himself or not? It also just happens to remind me, if you've never seen the Saturday Night Live sketch called Toonces, the driving cat, the cat who could drive a car, the basic conceit is that a cat starts driving a car, and then at some point it always flies off a cliff. So when I was picturing this movie, I was picturing a cat that looks like Thom Yorke driving in a James Bond movie. So that's just the carnival of hilarity that happens inside my brain. When it comes to musically, this song, the first time I heard it, I was like, oh God, I guess I'm not going to cover this. I don't know. Well, it's just, what do you Brits say? Whinging. It's just whinging and just, and the guitars and the drums. Just play the drums, man. The first take was not positive. And that makes sense, because my first take almost always, anything anyone having to do with Radiohead does, my first impressions are usually somewhat negative, because I have such high expectations that my expectations go all over the place. But what I did was I did what I always do with artists that I really trust, and I give it a real shot, push through, really try to figure out if there is something there. And I listened to it probably 5 times in a row while I was playing with my daughter in her little playpen, my little baby. And it's an 8-minute song, so I must have been playing with her for an hour. And it was great, she's picking up blocks and chewing on tubes. And obviously, this song is a grower. It's a ridiculous, super duper grower. The more you listen to it, the more you get into it, the more cinematic it sounds. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Johnny Greenwood has moved into being primarily a soundtrack musician, because Radiohead isn't doing as much as it used to do, and that influence is found everywhere here. It has a cinematic feel. You really feel as though you're there in the roadster with kitty cat Thom Yorke. Feel free to, tag me on Instagram when you draw a picture of Thom Yorke as a cat driving a car. I'll share it on my Instagram if you do a good job with it. It's a very evocative and very painful song, because it is asking that question, should I or should I not cease my bodily functions by my own hand. Censor that, algorithm. I said cease. Oh, speaking of which, I don't promote myself enough here. I'm not sponsored. I don't think you should get perfume at all, by the way. Don't get luxury perfume, and don't let influencers and people you like watching YouTube tell you to get knockoff perfume. There's no point in wearing perfume. But if you want to get a mug with my little logo here, you could do that. The link's in the description. Please subscribe, smash the like bucket. Please leave a comment. Even if you don't know what to say, every single comment on any video that is AVAA, awesome video as always, I will give you a heart. Is that what that looks like? 100% of the time, okay? I read all my comments. I don't respond to them all because my kids say it makes me look desperate, but I enjoy reading my comments. It's like my favorite thing. And I love seeing an AVAA, so feel free to drop those one here if you like it. Drop those one here. I don't edit my videos. There's my mistake of the video. So, how does this song start? Well, first of all, it doesn't really try to knock you off your feet. It starts off with this jazzy, hazy opening. And the whole thing feels like it's constantly swelling. Is this too much? Is it too much to say that the feeling is trying to evoke in you the waves that are beckoning to the driver who's on those hills? And that just this, I mean, can you not imagine the opening, like 30 seconds of this song playing over footage of a waves, just going and crashing against the rocks? The guitar appears to be sort of played by hand, not by pick, sort of like swirling arpeggiated chords, and then we get to this single bending guitar note. Now, the thing about Radiohead is, and the artists in Radiohead, is they will often do a sort of annoying thing, like naming a song after like a placeholder. So, Weird Fish is one of my favorite Radiohead songs, is like slash arpeggio, because you could sort of see the entire song as an exercise in arpeggios on a guitar. So bending, this whole song, thematically, musically, feels like it's playing with bending. Just guitar notes, just when you're playing, you take usually your ring finger and you just bend it up. Or, you drop it down. And creating that kind of tough sound. But bending hectic. Now, hectic I don't quite understand. I do believe that this refers to the end, because in general, hectic means full of activity. Like that's the general meaning, and the end of this song is very hectic. Also, I don't know, the etymology of the word goes back to the Greek hektikos, which means continuous or habitual. So, I don't know. Maybe this is actually saying that bending or turning, right? Because these are the themes of the song. Is he going to turn the wheel to stay on the road? Is he going to let go of the wheel to fly off? So is it his continuous bending, his continuous turning of the wheel? And I think this is on purpose. I know it's on purpose, because there's a point in the song where he says turn, turn, turn as the guitar is bending. Bending and turning are the same thing in the song. When Johnny Greenwood says bow, and Thom Yorke says turn, they're the same thing. So is life a continuous turning, where you could let go of the wheel, perchance to dream? You could let go of the wheel, no longer suffer the slings of arrows of outrageous fortune, and end your life. Or you could continually turn into the hectic existence. Bass line is very gentle all the way throughout. It's also very, it's like intentionally, you think maybe the bass player is just looking for something, but it's very clear he knows what he's doing. He's doing it on purpose. Then we get the opening lines, changing down the gears, slamming down the brakes. Already a bizarre thing to have in the song, because we're thinking like slamming down the brakes. So did he just let go of the wheel and he's stopping the brakes to not fall off? It's a little bit hard to figure out where the song starts, because it starts on a stop, right? The drums are just swelling on these cymbals. Again, when you play a crash cymbal and you kind of roll it, so normally a crash cymbal sounds like this. But when you're playing drums and you kind of play it kind of quietly and then it get louder, it's a swell. It's a swell like an ocean. think it's supposed to sound like the waves. Then the second verse, the drums come in a little bit more strongly. This almost 70s style singer-songwriter strings start coming in. The jazzy drums are still just kind of tickling, a little bit more present. Everything starts to take form. The song is 8 minutes long, and it allows itself to be a journey. One of my favorite things about movies or songs or albums is when they start you in one place and they end you someplace else. And when you get to the end of the song or the end of the movie, you're like, how did we start here and end there? This is one of those songs. As the voice goes falsetto, the guitar starts to take more form down an Italian mountainside. There's basically two repeated words or expressions in this song that are the most important because they're the diametrical opposition. There is let go the wheel. He only ever says wheel. Let go the wheel. That's 2 syllables, wheel. Let go of the wheel or turn. Okay? Turn, to be. Or let go of the wheel, not to be. That is the question. Third part, kind of a pre-chorus. Drums have a little muted solo. Guitar's bending more, but there's still all these great chords happening. The bass is more grounded. The strings are going up. Might be as well. Might be as well as this question saying it might just be better to kill yourself. Maybe that's better. Oh, Jesus Christ, I said that. I said those words. Am I going to be demonetized? Am I going to be hidden? Did you find me? Did you find me despite the fact I said that? This is why I should really edit, because I might just say those words. Anyways. The next verse is sort of after this first chorus. I like how it's very similar to the beginning, but it's just much more formed. The drums are more consistently present. They're very interesting. Skinner does all these great things playing the rim of the drum. So great, now Toby's barking. So you have the snare, pop, and then you have the rim, tick, tick. And then it leads back into the pre-chorus, and then we get to the central part of the song. The song's very a binary, right? Because it's to be or not to be. That's the implied thing here. Turn or let go of the wheel. So in the middle we have these horror strings, which this is Johnny Greenwood very obviously working in his realm of. Sorry, I hear people coming upstairs. The one thing I ask them not to do is come upstairs. Everyone's downstairs. Why are they coming upstairs? Doesn't matter. The central part of the song, right? We have these horror strings, which remind me of The Shining or any kind of horror movie. It's doing kind of a trick called the shepherd's tone. That's where it sounds like a tone is going constantly up. The way you do it is you make one thing go bend up. And as this reaches the top, you start another tone underneath. And if you play them both at the same time, it creates a sense of tension and anxiety that it's going to just keep going up. How can your ears possibly handle how much higher it's going? And this is the point where, presumably, this is the Toonces moment. The cat's going over the cliff. The enemy in James Bond is flying off. Thom Yorke is flying into the Mediterranean. That's the feeling. That's the feeling you get. That this is, in this little cinematic moment, we're seeing the little Alfa Romeo. What's a 60s roadster? I'll say an Alfa Romeo. An MG. That's a British car, right? And then we hit the hard part. And that's where obviously, if you're listening for the first time, you're just like, dear God, please in heaven, get to the part where you start kicking ass. I know you're going to do it, smile. But sometimes Thom and Johnny don't ever give you the payoff. Sometimes. So we get the payoff. It's just great pounding chords. The drums are super badass. The cymbals almost sound underwater. Just the great toms and cymbals everywhere. And then this is the problem with Thom Yorke's wonderful singing style. We don't understand his lyrics. This is what I heard the first time I heard it. I force myself to despise these things that Spider-Man, hose. So, that is the lyrics to the song. It turns out they're much more interesting. I'll get to the lyrics more in depth soon. I'm trying to take you through the journey of the song, because that's the fun thing about the song. I'm talking about the song for 15 minutes, and it's an 8-minute song. this great sort of like repetition of turn, 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 bend. The guitar actually sounds like, we can sort of imagine the strings as the road and the guitars being like the car going off the path. Really, the guitar is speaking in this song. Little guitar solo that doesn't really form. Johnny Greenwood, I mean, I remember back in 1995, Grandpa Professor Skye here with his little baby downstairs, remembers listening to the song Just for the first time when I heard it, and it sounded like they were going to go into a guitar solo and then the song ended. It doesn't go that hard, but it does that kind of thing because Johnny Greenwood knows how to stop before you're ready for it. Kind of a buzzy end of the song where like the amp is kind of buzzing. And now let's go through and just study it more with actual lyrics, right? Does he cease his bodily functions? You know, and what I think is interesting is one of the questions in Hamlet. You know, one of the values of taking your own life is that you are doing it on your own terms. Now, I don't think that's actually a value, but he says no one is going to bring me down. So that's the basic idea. I don't think he's really singing. I don't think Thom is singing about Thom's perspective. I think Thom is singing about Thom's depressed perspective. Like there's a sort of a distance in here. And, you know, in the chorus, which I figured out after I realized what the song was about, I didn't understand what he was saying. When he said, I've got these things of Spider-Man hose. I didn't understand what it was, but he says, I've got these slings and I've got these arrows. So that's obviously a direct quotation from the opening lines of Hamlet's soliloquy. So, you know, if you don't know that, it's fine. It's fine. It's a super important thing, but maybe you just know to be or not to be, and that's fine too. So the lines are, to be or not to be, that is the question, right? And that's the question of the song, to exist or not to exist. That's why Shakespeare rules, because that's the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune or take arms against the sea of troubles. So is it better to let yourself sleep, let go of the wheel, or to take arms, or to turn and keep fighting? And that's the question of the play, and that's the question of the song. I think it's interesting that in the original he says the sea of troubles, and there's the relief that's implied. Part of the problem, what makes to be or not to be so interesting, as you hear my baby still crying downstairs. Sorry, tell me in the comments that you don't care about the baby, would you? Because I'm getting anxious, but you probably don't care. I don't need to be a perfectionist. It's all good. I don't need to be perfect. You know? I don't. Did you know that? Did you know you don't have to be perfect to deserve love? It's true. I didn't know that until like a year ago. But you don't actually have to be perfect to deserve love or to get likes on your smash bucket. So the idea of death in Hamlet and in this song is that it's relief. That turning is hard. If you've ever driven a car, especially on a windy road, it's hard, especially if you're driving an Italian roadster. Now that I think about it, before assisted steering, it's really hard. You're really turning. It's really difficult, you know? But here, to sleep, perchance to dream. You know, just to let go, just to sleep. That's the problem that Hamlet makes offing oneself appealing. In the same way that just this whole song could be seen as taking place like with someone's life flashing before their eyes in the 13 seconds it takes them to go off the cliff into the Mediterranean. This whole song is happening and they're remembering their whole life as it's happening and just letting go of the wheel. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come? That's the question. Now, does he do it or does he not? It seems as though he says no, he does not, because he says he's going to turn. He's going to force himself to turn. But at the same time, the final verse, the ground is coming from me now. We've gone over the edge. If you've got something to say it now. Essentially saying that he is going to end it, and you might as well tell him whatever you're going to tell him because his life is about to end. So I don't know. Does he live or does he not? You can tell me that in the comments if you want. I think it's on purpose. I think we are supposed to think of it as Schrodinger's self-ending cessation of human Schrodinger suicide, that he both kills himself and doesn't kill himself at the same time. Much like Hamlet, at the end of Hamlet, spoiler, dies by suicide and not by suicide at the same time. A poisoned blade. And it's like he sort of meant to do it, but sort of didn't. We're intentionally in both realms at the same time. So that's what I think the song's about. That's what I think it is. I think it rules. I think it's the Smile song ever. I don't know. I'm so excited. I'm so happy it's different. I'm so happy they're moving in another direction. I'm so pissed that they're not Radiohead. God damn it, would you get that beautiful Mr. Selway back behind the drums? I love Skinner. I love it all. I love it all. That's all music. It's all great. I'm going to go join the rest of my family now. I don't know what the hell's been going on behind me, but I'm a little bit distracted. All right, till next time, hold on to the wheel. You know, we must turn. That's what life is. Do not let go of the wheel. Okay? Turn. That's the key to existence, right? Life gets tough. Hard things happen. Just keep turning. All right. Till next time, there's the camera.